Okay.
Overall stats, first and second half combined. Liverpool possession, 76%. Shots on target, 8. Big chances created, 4. 83% accurate passing with 513 accurate passes.
I don't even think they were that poor. I think that they were compact, and I think that they were sitting back, and I think that the 500,000 passes that we had that were successful, that we completed the passes, were Konate passing to Van Dijk, to Joe Gomez, to Trent Alexander-Arnold, to Joe Gomez, to Konate, to Van Dijk. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to American LFC. My name is Nate. We're talking with my brother, Eli. How are you feeling today?
Great, how are you?
Very well, thank you. We're talking about a win that just took place against Sheffield United. Bramall Lane, I believe, is the name of their ground. Record attendance, something like 34,000 I saw on the screen today.
Okay.
Liverpool walks away with 3 points. Was it well-deserved? Was it well-earned? Thoughts?
Well, to be completely honest, I only had a chance to watch the first half. We had some Peacock user issues, so I didn't get to watch the second half, so I'm going to rely on you for that. But based on the stats I was just looking at, it seems like it was, yes, incredibly well-deserved. From the first half I saw, and I think I even texted you while the game was going, that it was like, aside from a few defensive, brain farts, I thought we were in just almost complete domination of the game. And we'll get to the numbers here in a minute, but that's how I felt about it. How did you feel watching the full game?
It's interesting. It felt like it was a pretty poor performance, to be totally honest.
I mean, Sheffield are in dead last place. They have the worst offensive record in the league, and their leading scorer was suspended.
Right, which is why I was like, they offered almost no threat, but they still looked dangerous against us, which is sort of like, yikes, guys, let's just play defense. It felt Bramall Lane was putting pressure on us. Like, you could see that it was like happening. They were until Szoboszlai got the second goal. Very, 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 very late into the second half. The result was on ice. Like, it was dicey. It was on the edge. They could have pipped something from us.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say. I feel like there's two ways to look at this win. I think you could walk away from this win being like, yeah, you know what? It wasn't a great game. It was a tough game away. They were in the dead last position, but we walked away with 3 points, and that's what matters the most. And I think that's the best way to look at it. And there's also a way where it's just like, well, we didn't perform great.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't a great game, and that you could like overanalyze and get really worked up about how poor of a game it was, but also like, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, there's the old adage of champions get points even when they don't play well, or some variation of whatever that phrase is. So it does feel good. We were talking earlier this week that we were worried about the new manager bounce, right? Because they did end up appointing Chris Wilder as their manager again. But I saw an interesting stat today before the game that we have only lost one game to a team when they have a new manager in that manager's first 5 games.
That's really interesting.
Yep. I think we lost one and drew 2, but other than that, it's been pretty dominant.
Wow, okay. Yeah, look, I think my overall picture from the very start of this game was, let me just say that from the beginning, when you sent me the lineup, I was super excited. Because the thing that was happening is what I've been looking forward to and excited about and wondering why we haven't been doing it, and that is Joe Gomez playing left back. He's a quick, defensive-minded center back, and on this podcast, I've repeatedly asked for us to have an opportunity to play with 3 center backs, and we were finally doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Gomez had a very poor game.
Yeah.
And that bums me out. Man, I was just like, man, I really hope this holds. And I don't know if it's going to. I hope that it does. I'm sure that it was watching minutes for Tsimikas. You know what I mean? There are a lot of games coming thick and fast during the holiday season, so I'm sure it was like, hey, we're playing the last place team. Let's just put on Joe.
I
But
will
yeah,
say,
mhm.
FootMob gave him a 7.3 compared to Salah's 6.7, Diaz's 6.8, and McAllister's 6.6. So according to at least FootMob, he didn't have the worst performance of the day.
No, I agree with that. He didn't, but he had the arguably the most noticeably
Yeah.
poor performance.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, like, Mo Salah had a poor performance in the fact that he was almost anonymous for the entire game, which is there was very few times people were like, and Mo Salah. It
Right.
was just like, where's Mo at? What's
Yeah.
happening? He's losing the ball. He's not. Our final third decision making was off, but that's a whole other thing, which we can talk about in a second. But um, I was just a little bit bummed out because it was very clear that he was trying to find his foothold, and that's totally reasonable. I'm not hating on him. I hope he gets more opportunities to play left back. I think that he deserves it. I like the idea of having a defense-minded center back playing on the left-hand side. I don't care that he's right-footed. Personally, it doesn't matter. But he was looking lost frequently. It clearly was getting to him. There were a little bit of jitters. There was some decision making errors. Like one of their first attempts on goal is him like sort of like hanging onto the ball at the halfway, and he pickpocketed, and then they have a breakaway.
Yep.
Not great decision making, but I hope that we moving forward, we're obviously going to continue to operate with the box midfield. My hope is that we see Joe Gomez playing left and Konate playing center right, so that when Alexander-Arnold steps into midfield, we have three fast center backs playing in our defense.
Yeah.
That's what I hope. What did you think about Joe Gomez's performance?
I mean, you mentioned the one to me that I saw that I was like, oh man, that's not great, is when he gets caught in possession just on their side of the half, and it becomes very quickly a 2v1, I guess 2v2 if you count Kelleher. But he gets back, has good recovery pace, and gets back and is able to put the Sheffield player off, and then I think Trent's able to break it up from there, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it bounced off of his foot, but then landed to Archer, who ended up taking a shot, and Keller had to block it anyway.
Yeah.
I think it goes out for a corner. So it's like just a bunch of sloppy Joe play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just not putting us in positions for success. But I know that it's like I'm coming down on him harshly, and I don't want it to be. This is just the reality of his performance today. Wasn't spectacular. And I want Joe Gomez to have spectacular performance for Liverpool because I want to see him playing left back personally.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's a great player. He's been around I think he's now the longest serving senior player at Liverpool, right? So I want to see him be successful. I've always liked Joe Gomez,
Yeah.
Hopefully it's one of those things that is okay.
Yeah, hopefully I think there's just something that he'll get time to grow into the spot and understand his new role, the role of playing a left back coming from being a center right back. Like we'll see. I don't know. But we can come to the big conversation point here, which is that I believe Mo Salah is distracted by his record setting, and it seems evident today. He snatched at several opportunities where he had the chance to put in, what was it, his 200th club goal or 200th club
200
goal.
Yep.
And 150th club goals in the Premier League.
Yep.
Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
So he needs one more goal to hit two humongous milestones. He failed to do so against Fulham, and he didn't play poorly, but he also didn't play great against Fulham. Although he set people up for assists, which is great. But today, I feel like I could see that he's grasping at it, and he's snatching at opportunities and chances. He just needs to get one goal, and then that'll be off of his back, and then it'll be fine. But like, it's very clear today he was grasping for a goal, and it affected his play.
Yeah. Yeah, so it does seem like Mo's gotten in his head a little bit more than we've probably ever seen that happen in his time with us. So, you know, we have talked about in the past how he is kind of a confidence player that when he's feeling good, he's, unplayable, really. So I think it'll come, a tough away fixture, in December, you know. It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's just I think it is something to be mindful of. That it's like it is the first time in a long time, and I agree with you that he's clearly in his head about what he's doing. He's the first name on the team sheet. He's the best player we have.
And we're also now in a situation where we don't rely on him to win us the game.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is great.
Yeah, so he actually came out on the 66th minute, right, which is very early for him.
Yeah.
So, who else came out? It was Darwin Núñez and Harvey Elliott came on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for Mo Salah
and Luis Diaz, I think, right?
And Luis Diaz, that's correct. Thank you. Who also just had an okay game. I think the thing is like. Sheffield United did a really great job of setting in, staying disciplined, staying compact, and it made it difficult for the guys on the wings to be able to find space behind the defense or even on the edges of play. And so I think it's reasonable, but that they weren't finding a lot of love. But I will say when Elliott ended up coming on. Things did change quite a bit. The pace and the energy changed, and Gakpo going out to the wing sort of helped. He was dropping in, and it did definitely feel like it was able to spread stuff. And Darwin coming on too established a new level of energy. He was pressing high up at the defense, and it made a big difference.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why we have strength and depth. That's why subs exist.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think that this is I think this is a game that we walk away from pleased to get the 3 points, and I'm sure Klopp and his analysts will find a lot to talk about. But I think for our purposes, it's a tough away game in a cold ground in the middle of December, and we got 3 points.
Yeah, you can't ask for much more than that. I guess it did seem that McAllister getting subbed off was because he got a cut on his knee, and that was opening up more and more as the game went on, so they just had to sub him off because Klopp said in his post-match that it was just becoming more and more painful for him. So hopefully that's not like a long-term thing. But I did see that also in Klopp's post-match that he revealed the results of Joel Matip's scan, and he did rupture his ACL, which is probably the season ender, and his contract is up in the summer, so it seems unlikely that we'll see Joel Matip playing for Liverpool again. Which is, it's a bummer because he's been kind of the unsung steadiness over his time here, that has brought a lot of success.
Yeah, Joel Matip is a critical component of us winning the league and the Champions League and the Club World Cup and every cup that we've won with Klopp. He's been a very important part of that. He's created a stability with Virgil van Dijk, and the fact that we'll probably never see him play again for Liverpool is a huge bummer.
Yeah.
Hopefully we go out in January and we resolve that issue, which is that we clearly need one more center back. Like, we can't just get through with Kwanzaa and Gomez and Konate because that's 4. Like, you need 5 to 6 center backs that are playable because you need to be able to deal with injuries, suspensions. Virgil van Dijk got 3 games out for straight red card this season. So we just have to be flexible, and hopefully we can make a solution in the January transfer window.
So I don't want to derail us too far here, but I want to mention something that James Pierce said, and then kind of pose a question to you. And James Pierce said after the Fulham game, Trent's move into midfield now seems inevitable, and forget buying a 6, we need a new right back. So with that in mind, what is your January shopping list? What's on your Dear Santa list for Liverpool in January?
A left-footed center back.
And that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, because here's the truth. I hear what James Pierce is saying. I just don't agree with it.
Well, I think that for me, I get what he's saying, but Trent is not a 6, right?
No.
And I would say moving Trent into midfield and not buying a 6 is, making an issue at the right back position to get more midfielders in when we're not actually short on talented young midfielders right now.
Agreed. I that's why I don't think his move to midfield is set in stone. I actually don't think it makes sense, right? Because the thing that you're doing is you're burning 2 positions, right?
Yeah.
So Trent is a right back now and is still playing in midfield so that we can get the overload in possession.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. If you take him away, we have more defensive solidity, but then what we're talking about is Trent is now involved with the conversation is, okay, well, who are the 2 8s? Dominic Szoboszlai, Ryan Gravenberch, Alexi McAllister, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's what we're talking about. 6 for 2.
Yeah.
Where there is a way that they're playing right now where they get 3 instead of 2.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense to me. The thing that makes sense to me is like continuing to play the box midfield where Trent is a right back who pushes into a double pivot of a 6 and can go forward when we have a destroyer 6.
Right.
He can push forward to join in on the attack so that we're overloading so that it's what we have 4 defenders back essentially, right? We've got a 6 dropping back with the 3 center backs. That's what makes sense to me. That's what we're doing. That's what's successful. It's about overloads. It's not about positions.
Right.
Right? So that's why I'm like, I understand it, but it doesn't feel like a reasonably a good faith argument. It just feels like we should check this box. Like Trent Alexander has earned the privilege of having the moniker as midfielder, which is like a quote unquote more impressive position on the field. But that's what he plays already. He's already doing that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, we're still doing pretty well. We let in 0 goals today. That puts us at 15 goals or 14 goals conceded in 15 games. Arsenal just let in 3. That puts them at 14 goals. And Man City just lost again today. That puts them at 17 goals. So that means we're tied with Arsenal, who's in first place for the fewest goals allowed in the league. And we're complaining about leaking goals, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the truth is, like, we're doing fine.
Yeah.
And this isn't even our best team. We don't even have we keep talking about we don't even have the right personnel. That's why it's like, I don't think Robertson's the answer for the future. I think a left-sided, we needed Gvardiol.
Yeah.
We need Ignacio. We need a 6'1" to 6'2" fast left-footed center back who will play left back for us so Trent can push into the middle.
Yeah.
That's what
I agree. Yeah.
And arguably there is an argument there is an argument to also get a 6. You know what I mean? Where it's like Endo is like break glass in case of emergencies type situation.
Well, what did you think about Endo today, though?
I thought his performance was great.
Yeah.
I thought he was incredible.
Let's see.
I thought.
Well, FootMob gave him a 7.6, but still, it's
you're not going to take a 7.6 on a rainy day in Sheffield
Yeah, no,
on a
that's true.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's an incredible score. Like it was a gnarly, difficult, cold, ragged game, and like that's the test, right? That's the thing. But can you do it on a rainy night in Stoke on a Wednesday? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like Endo just passed the test. He
Yeah.
got a C. He got a C score, I guess. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But the thing is like you'd take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
I didn't see. He wasn't my concern. There were like 4 other players that I was like,
Yeah.
not a great performance, not a great performance, not a great. Like, he did well. So
Yeah. So while we are just singing Trent's praises here, I saw an interesting stat that said basically Danny Alves and Marcelo, probably considered 2 of the best fullbacks of this generation, right? Combined for 105 goal contributions, goals and assists by the time they were Trent's age. Trent now has 103 goals and assists. So he only has 2 less than what most people consider 2 of the best fullbacks combined. I mean, the dude is a straight up generational talent, and he's the kind of generational talent that really does transcend positions, because he's bossing games on the team sheet from right back.
well, that's why my argument is why change.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree.
Like the question that is when everybody is saying he's now earned the right to be in midfield. My question, and Klopp will never do this, right? By the way, which is like because Klopp is reading the tea leaves already. He knows. He's like, why on earth would you sacrifice Dominic Szoboszlai to have Trent play further up the field when you could just push both of them further up the field?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It's a silly argument, but I get why people do it. It's because of cachet and like the importance that people put on midfield. But Trent is doing all of this stuff already from right back, so why not just keep him at right back and still have 3 midfielders? We get 4 midfielders. Why not?
Yeah.
That's why I would say my January wish list is a left center back.
Yeah.
To play on the left side of Van Dijk.
And I think Endo is really coming into it, right? The last couple of games we've seen from Endo, he really is starting to adjust to the league and the system and what his role needs to be, in that system. And I think Endo is just going to keep getting better and better. And I think that's because when I saw the team sheet, I was pretty darn excited to see Endo starting with McAllister and Szoboszlai on either side of him. I'm like, that's great right there.
I agree. The lineup really brought me a lot of excitement. The performance did not.
Yeah.
I don't think that the performance is indicative of the lineup personally. I think the lineup could be really exciting in the future. Like it's almost my ideal team. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's an argument about Gakpo or Darwin Nunez in the middle, but like for me, it's like Gomez, Van Dijk, Konate as our center backs, Trent as our right back pushing into the box midfield. Endo is a destroyer number 6, and we have Szoboszlai and McAllister working as our 8s pushing into 10s. Super creative, energetic, really physical midfield. Like, that sounds incredible.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Hopefully, Klopp's not going to be deterred by the result. He's going to see all the stuff that goes on in making the result what it is. So I think Klopp will use this lineup again, and I think it will be more successful in implementation. But you can't be more successful in result because it was a win, and we got 3 points.
Yeah. So let's talk about numbers quick, because you've kind of been poo-pooing their performance, so I want to pose this to you as kind of a rundown of the stats, right? Okay. Overall stats, first and second half combined. Liverpool possession, 76%. Shots on target, 8. Big chances created, 4. 83% accurate passing with 513 accurate passes in 12 corners. The difference I want to highlight there is Sheffield had 95 accurate passes, meaning they completed only 48%. They only had 2 corners and 1 shot on target. So, having not seen the second half and really understanding the context, you look at those numbers and say either we blew them out of the water or Sheffield were just really bad. And what you're saying is, having watched the full game, is Sheffield were just pretty poor.
I don't even think they were that poor. I think that they were compact, and I think that they were sitting back, and I think that the 500,000 passes that we had that were successful, that we completed the passes, were Konate passing to Van Dijk, to Joe Gomez, to Trent Alexander-Arnold, to Joe Gomez, to Konate, to Van Dijk. Okay. You can pass along your back line all you want, but there's no penetration. There was no space for anybody to get into anywhere. My question would be, what is our XG in that game? What is our expected goal scoring?
Because 1.78.
Okay, so we delivered on that, I guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we had 8 shots on target, right? That's what you said?
Yep.
Okay, but only 4 big goal scoring chances.
Yep.
Okay, and we put 2 goals away.
Yeah.
So we only took 50% of our goal-scoring opportunities. That's not great, right? It's not terrible, but it's not great.
Well, I mean, when you look at the conversion, you're like, well, that's not great. But then if you factor in the expected goals, then yeah, we're right where you would expect it to be. Like,
yeah, totally. But I will
scoring all of your big chances isn't what I would say what usually happens in football, right?
No, certainly not. But I would also say that it's like, okay, well, our XG is probably around 2. You got it. Like, this kind of plays out the way that you expect. We're holding on to a 1-0 lead for 70 minutes, and then Sheffield's trying to pip one to bring it to a draw, and then we get a breakaway counterattack with Soboslai at the 6 standing alone to be able to pass it into the net. Like the 2 goals flatters us. It's a 1-0 win that we were like grinding out, and that we were able to beat them on the counterattack when they were finally throwing bodies forward, which is a reality of football. Like, that's just a reality. That's the way that it works.
Well, I mean, just to I guess devil's avocado is to say, you know, there's a certain amount of game management that goes into, hey, we're just going to pass it along our back line with our defensive midfielder just to have the opposition have to focus on what's going on for longer and longer and grind out that result, right? You don't have to be City and blow every team out 7-0 or lose 1-0. You know, if you can implement good game management when you do go up 1-0 and then see that out. And then if you get lucky to score a second one to really put it to bed, that's fine. But you have to be able to manage a game to win the league, right? You can't just go all the time, because it's that go that opens you up, and where we have had issues in the past, right?
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. I just think the thing that's interesting is just it felt like there was jeopardy in this game. I think that if we're watching the game at 80 minutes, no Liverpool fan feels comfortable.
Yeah.
So that tells me that whether we had a lot of passes or whatever, it's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
We should. They're bottom of the table. They are in dead last place with 5 points in this league.
Yeah.
It's at the 80th minute, and we've got tight sphincter time going.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good enough from Liverpool Football Club. That's just the reality to me, right? Which is that it's just like, it's a tough game. I empathize, but it's just like on to the next. Like, okay, let's just analyze it where we can, and like let's take what we can from it and go on to the next. Because the other thing that I would say is, like, you also said we had 12 corners.
Yeah.
12 corners, 8 shots, 4 large chances. That's not a great ratio on any of those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all I would say. And mind you, 8 shots on target is a sizable number, but I would be interested to see what other game, like, how many shots on target do we have against, I don't know, somebody else, like Luton, even though we drew that in the last minute. You know what I mean? I would just be curious to see how many the Chelsea game, the Newcastle game when we were down 2 men. Like,
Yeah.
I would just be curious, because 8 shots on target seems like a lot, but when you have as much possession as we do and as many passes strung together, it just doesn't. It's just not a stat that we can hang our hat on. I think the 3 points is a stat we can hang our hat on and go on to the next. But I think there's a lot of learning for Liverpool to do in this game.
It is interesting listening to your kind of exposition there, that it is a very Liverpool thing that we don't only win, but we have to win well, and we have to, win beautifully. It's not just enough to win. You have to entertain the people.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yes, but also my thing is that my problem is not with the way that we win a game. It's the fact that we're winning the game after squeaky bum time into the 80th minute once again, which is there's jeopardy because we are not setting ourselves up to make us feel settled. Our team does not make themselves or us as fans feel settled, right? We're down 1-0 to Luton until the 94th minute.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're behind Fulham 3-2 until the 87th and 88th minute. You know what I mean? It's like these are the squeaky bum times that I'm talking about, right? So when you get to the 80th minute and Sheffield starts to throw large center back bodies into the center of the field, you just don't have confidence.
Yeah, I know, but it's the first half of a season with a completely new midfield. I mean, the engine of Klopp's system was wholesale changed at the start of this season. Yeah, I think it's almost unrealistic to say we need dominant performances from this team from start to finish, right? As long as we're getting the points and we keep the pressure on Arsenal and we keep moving ahead of City, that's what matters when the the trophy gets handed out at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, totally. I totally agree. And you're right, but like the history books won't just say, "Oh, we missed this league by 1 point because we had a new look midfield." Like nobody cares. It's like we do have to get the results. I agree with you. You're right. In years past, we would have just lost the Luton game and we would have just lost the Fulham game and we would have dropped points today. But we didn't.
Yeah.
We dropped points at Luton, but we pulled it from out of nowhere, right? So you're right. It is marginal gains, right? It just it's just I just don't think it's the performance that you would hope or expect to see when you're playing the team in 20th place. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
But your point remains, which is that it is 3 points on the table that cannot be removed. So we're in second place.
Yeah.
Man, Arsenal almost dropped points. I can't believe it. I watched that game. Last kick of the game, Arsenal scores a goal. It's like absurd. It was legitimately not as cool or as impressive, but it's the same level of Alisson scoring on the corner of the last kick of the game against West Brom several years.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing. It's like infuriating. Sorry. So we just got to stay in there. Stay in the race.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, this is the game for a Wednesday. Is there anything else that we feel like we should cover? Do you think?
Oh well, there is one thing I wanted to bring up because our conversation about greatest EPL managers has generated some engagement on the socials, and by that I mean my Facebook page.
Yeah, great.
That you had named Pep and Fergie is probably the two best of the EPL era. And a friend of ours mentioned Arsene Wenger, and I kind of laughed it off. And then I saw another stat today that I actually sent you a screenshot of that is the number of wins in a EPL manager's first 300 games, right? And let me see if I get this right off the top of my head. Ferguson has 180 wins in his first 300 games. Arsene Wenger has 183 wins in his first 300 games, and Klopp has 188 wins in his first 300 games.
So that is almost exactly correct, but you got Fergie and Arsene Wenger swapped.
Okay, well.
Arsene Wenger won 180 games in 300. Alex Ferguson won 183 games in 300. And Norbert Klopp won 188 games in the first 300 games. Although I will say, look, that was absolutely an oversight on my part when we were just like talking into microphones a couple days ago. But the last episode that we did following the Fulham game, we did sing the praises of Arsene Wenger. We spoke very clearly about how he's one of the greatest in Premier League history.
Yeah.
But I will say that context matters when it comes to stuff like this, and what I think what we were saying is, what will it take for Klopp to be in one of the names listed at the top of greatest managers of all time? And we're saying we believe that he needs a couple more Premier League titles and maybe another Champions League. That's what we were saying, to be compared to the other greats. The one thing that I'll say is, like, I think one of the reasons why Arsene Wenger doesn't always come to the top of my mind, even though it probably should, because he is one of the greatest managers in the Premier League history, is that growing up, when we started watching EPL, was when he was declining, not at his heyday.
Yeah.
He did 10 seasons. I watched 10 back-to-back seasons where they finished in the top 4, and that was their achievement.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to be like, oh man, he's just like so great, even though the numbers bear it out.
Yeah.
Like the first half of his career at Arsenal was really, really, really tremendous and burned super brightly, but the back half of the Arsene Wenger era is riddled with Sadio Mane's first game with Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, 4-1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's how we see them now, is that they were just for the first several years of Klopp, is that they were a punching bag for Liverpool.
Yeah, and I guess it is different when we look at that comparison of Arsene Wenger versus Fergie when we started watching the Premier League. Is Fergie was strong almost up until the day he left. I mean, he was getting results out of teams that no one else could have.
He won after he left. After they won a Premier League title, and then he was like, "I'm going out on top," and then he retired.
Yeah,
they haven't won it. They haven't won it since. But that just goes to show. It's like, but Wenger didn't do. I mean, we should look it up, but I think it's at least 10 years that they hadn't won a title in his last 10 years at the club.
And barely any trophies. Maybe a domestic cup or two.
Yeah, I think there was a FA Cup around there, but yeah, it's just like that's unfortunately for Arsenal, it's like that's sort of a whimper into irrelevance.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like also it's not fair because like you want to say that they're the best Premier League manager, you want to only take the Premier League into consideration, but that's just not the world that we live in. It's just he didn't win a Champions League, and I'm sorry. It's just like really hard to be like you didn't win a Champions League. You're not the best team in Europe. It doesn't matter what you do domestically. It's like you kind of have to prove that to even be in the conversation.
Well,
right?
and so that if I were to list off like my greatest managers in like the second half of the 20th century, all of them, I think, had multiple European Cups. You know,
right? Like,
so we have Helenio Herrera, who kind of invented the kind of the defensive counterattack. Was really successful with Inter Milan. Then we have Mikkels at Ajax, and then Barcelona that invented total football. And then from there, we probably go to Johan Cruyff, who, again, just kind of refined the total football into its next iteration. And then from Cruyff, you kind of look Cruyff and then Sacchi at AC Milan, who is one of Kloppo's main inspirations that kind of invented the I skipped one. There's another one that kind of comes into the high press, almost the version 1 of gegenpressing, and that's a manager from Dynamo Kiev, and I'm going to butcher his name. It's like Lobiansky or but he won 2 European Cups with Dynamo Kiev. And then so you go from him to Sachi, and then you get to really there it becomes Ferguson. Ferguson, I don't think was really responsible for any like great tactical paradigm shifts like the other managers I just named did. He just won a ton of stuff. And then you get to Pep and Klopp. You know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like look up some of the statistics here really quickly. I'm not finding like a great breakdown or analysis of his like win record. Wenger. Come on, managerial. Okay, so he was at Arsenal for 22 years.
Wow.
And I just really cannot find a good breakdown. I mean, so here are some of the things. It's like he's managed the most matches of anybody in Premier League history. 18 matches more than Sir Alex Ferguson, with 828 matches managed.
Wow.
Right. So longevity.
Yeah, there is something to be said for longevity.
Right. He won 716 times.
Wow.
So you have 57. That can't be right. Okay, well, I wish that there was a clearer. I got to find like a table somewhere that just says what the deal is, how many times he won the Premier League. Either way, look. Okay, I forgot Arsene Wenger. He's one of the greatest Premier League managers in history.
I didn't bring it up to like beat on you about missing Arsene Wenger. It's more of to reaffirm Klopp is probably already there.
But is he?
I think he is, honestly. I mean, the fact that he has been the only one that has really been able to compete with Pep across 2 different leagues right there says he deserves to be in the conversation towards the top, because I think most people would say the greatest manager right now is probably Pep, because you know, the success he had at Barcelona and how many teams tried to replicate that style of play, and then the number of trophies he's won at City. But, you know, across from Pep's time at Bayern and City, Klopp is the only one that has consistently been able to challenge Pep for results.
Okay, so I got a quick little list here, and I think that this actually helps me understand this more. He has 3 Premier League titles, Arsene Wenger.
Yeah.
In 22 years at Arsenal.
That's not great.
He's got 7 FA Cups. Right? He has 7 Super League cups.
Okay.
Which I think is
the one before Europa League, right?
No, the Super Cup, I think what is the Carabao Cup now?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep.
And that's basically his trophy cabinet in English football.
Yeah. I mean, that's 16 trophies, though, right? Over 17 trophies over 22 years. That's not terrible.
Nothing to sniff at. That's for sure. But it is interesting because here's what I'll say. If Arsene Wenger is in the conversation, which I believe that he is, right, of being a GOAT manager for their generation, if that's the argument, right, greatest of all time for this past generation, then I do think if Klopp wins one more Premier League, one more Champions League, then he does deserve to be in the conversation as well, because he's been there for 7 seasons and is not that far off of the trophy cabinet right. I understand that he's not going to get 7 FA Cups because he hasn't been there 22 years.
Right.
Right. But the trophy cabinet isn't that far off of the number of trophies that we're talking about here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think let's just say this, man. I hope we could have Klopp for 22 years.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be? Yeah.
Incredible. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's just get an extension for these coming years.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. All right, guys. It's a Wednesday.
It is a Wednesday. We did it. I have to apologize for all the background noise. We're not recording at our normal time, and the little rapscallions that live in my house were being quite noisy, so I apologize for that.
I didn't even notice.
Oh, really?
I didn't
okay, great.
I didn't hear anything. So my dog was clicking around too. So all good. Everyone, thank you so much for sticking around. Let us know if you have any comments below. Do you think Arsene Wenger is one of the greatest managers in football history? And do you think Klopp should be ranked in that category on that list as well? If not, what trophy cabinet does he need to achieve to be considered one of the greatest of all times? Okay, thank you so much, guys. We'll speak soon.
All right,
Cheers.
thanks.